Right, good morning and welcome back to the shop. Okay, today, Honda Goldwing GL1500 1992 cam belt change. And the reason I'm doing it on my old bike is because I don't know when it was last done. The cam belt interval is 100,000 miles on a Goldwing, typical Honda, fantastic durability, but it's 28 years old. It's only done 62,000. It's not due the belts on mileage, but 28 years and I've got no record of when it was last done. So I think you'll all agree, definitely worth doing them just to be sure. Now, it's a long old job. You've got to get the engine stone cold, strip all the bodywork off and get at it. It's a good 6-hour job. If you book it in with your dealer, many hundreds of pounds, but the belts themselves are not expensive. It's a job you can do yourself. But I'm not going to make this video a detailed close-up how-to video with blow-by-blow instructions. And the reason for that is it's all too easy with YouTube videos for people to clip and skip forward in the video because they're bored and they miss something. And if you miss something that's critical, it could cost you your engine. Remember, engines like this, all 4-stroke engines, they are an interference principle. Basically, different parts of the engine's internals occupy the same space at different times, and the timing of the movement of those parts is critical. So the timing belts, which we're changing, if one of them breaks or is timed incorrectly, then internal parts can meet each other and start beating the engine to death internally. So it's very important. If you're going to do this job, don't follow a YouTube video because it's too easy to clip forward and miss something that's said. Follow a manual. Follow that manual step by step, blow by blow, picture by picture, and get it right. And if you're in any doubt, book it in with the dealer, save up the money and pay for it to be done. It's that critical. Get it wrong, make a mistake, you will destroy your motorcycle's engine, and there's no other way around it. So do make sure, if you're going to watch this, please watch it for entertainment, enjoy the video. It's going to be 2 days for me because I want it cooled right down to stone cold. Stone cold in this case, I tested it on the toolbox, 8 centigrade. So the engine at the moment, 35 on the outside of the engine, which means it's going to be 6 hours before that's stone cold right to the crank in the middle. So I'm going to leave it overnight. And that's why a lot of dealers, if you're going to book a job like this in, they'll ask you to drop it off the night before and they'll do it the next day. It's a simple way to do it. It's all laid out in your manual, you'll see. So for me now, today, rolled it in. I'm going to drop all the bodywork and the furniture off, and then tomorrow I'll get into the job for real. But you'll see it all in one video, and I'm going to get busy. Welcome back. Right, at this point I'm going to take the spark plugs out. A part of the job means rotating the crank, and it's a lot easier if there's no plugs in the engine. So before you even go near taking the spark plugs out, have a little look down inside those holes. Nearly all liquid cooled engines and some air cooled engines, the plugs live down inside a hole. Perfect for little bits and bobs to gather in those holes, bits of grit, anything. And if they're down there, you take the spark plug out, they can accidentally fall into the engine, causing heartache. So before you go near those plugs, before you even crack them, take the caps off, put your eye protection on, and if you've got access to an airline, blow them out. Simple, innit? But you knew that. Right, there we are. Now, remember the remit in the manual is that this must be done dead cold. The outside of the engine feels stone cold, perfect. But right there in the center, where it matters, it's not. So I'm gonna leave it overnight, come back tomorrow, and finish it. See you then. Okay, I'm not making this a tutorial, as I've said, but I do want to mention this because this is something that is critical. You rotate the crank pulley round to the relevant markers. You line up the relevant marks with the crank pulley and the engine casing, that marker that's cast into the block. Once they're lined up, it is still possible to get your cam pulleys 180 degrees out because the cam pulleys turn at half the speed of the crank pulley. So therefore, I've rotated that round, they line up, but as you can see, on the cam pulley, the word up is reading upside down. So that indicates that the cam pulley is 180 degrees out. So I've got to rotate the crank pulley one more full revolution, and that will give me half a revolution in the camshaft, so it's then the correct way up. And those are the little details of why you need to follow a manual step by step. Let's do it again. Right, at this point, that's the scary bit done. That's the belts fitted, tensioned, everything torqued up and thread locked with permanent red thread lock, so it shouldn't go anywhere. Now, checking the tension of the belts is something laid down in the manual. It calls for a deflection of between 5 and 7 millimeters of the belt with 4.5 pounds of pressure. Now, it suggests to use a fancy tool called a deflectometer. Well, I don't have one of those, but I have got a luggage scale, and it's digital and it's accurate. So with a little piece of Ghetto Fix wire, that's a bit of coat hanger wire, nice and smooth, no sharp edges on my brand new belts, pulls down squarely on the belt, put the scale up against it, and as you pull down, get to 4.5 pounds of pressure, and then look at the scale, and that deflected by, as you saw, about 5 to 7 mil. So they are perfect, they are correct. I didn't need fancy tools. Now at this point, you check your work. You check, you make sure you've done everything absolutely correct before you go buttoning it up, putting the coolant in and hitting the start button and hope. Because if you've got something out of line, then as I said right at the beginning, something inside made of metal is going to meet something else made of metal and cause horrors. So you can do it by hand. I'm going to put the socket on the front of the crank, rotate the engine about 5 or 6 times and feel for any resistance whatsoever. If there's nothing, then I've done it all correctly. And if anything meets anything, it will stop pretty much solidly. And then you back off and check your work because you've done something wrong. So let's do that and find out if I have, shall we? Banging. It looks like everything's good, everything's worked, everything's tensioned correctly. I have fitted 2 new cam belts and it was a piece of cake. Simple as that. So now, let's button it up. New spark plugs, they always come from the factory gapped correct for the bike that they're going into, but it's always worth checking because you never know. And if one of them's out by a long way, then it will be another problem you don't need. So before you put any new plugs in, always check them first, make sure they're correct gap. But you knew that. Right, brand new spark plugs, uncrushed washers, put them in until they seat, and then half a turn from there and no more. That will see the washers themselves crushed and the plug torqued into position. Now, if you're using the old plugs, and it's perfectly okay to do that, then you're not going to get that half turn on them. Instead, just go for about 12 foot-pounds or whatever it says in your manual. If you've got an aluminium cylinder head and a steel spark plug, don't overstress it. Go with the right torque value at all times. New plugs, they need crushing, so that half a turn, that is essential. Bet you knew that. Right, there we are. 8 hours to do that job in my time. If I did it again, probably 6, purely because everything's loose and everything comes off again. And I know I've done it on this particular bike. There's no little things to get over. So if you went to a garage, I imagine they charge you 4 hours. And if that's the case, a Honda main dealer, 4 hours, 100 quid's worth of parts, you're looking between £500 and £600 to have this job done. And you saw that the majority of the work is donkey work, taking off the bodywork, putting on the bodywork. And it's long, laborious, careful work to get it done, because if it's a nice bike, unlike mine, you're not going to want to scratch it. So the garages take their time to make sure it's right, and you're going to do the same. So again, with the majority of it being donkey work, it's only a tiny little section in the middle that's critical. Changing the actual belts, half hour. That's all it would actually take. Once you can physically see them and there's nothing in the way, it's half hour. Whip them off, stick the new ones on, put them over the tensioners, tension them up, check them, job done, and that's it. So if it's that easy, it's only the little bit in the middle you've got to get over. So get a decent service manual, said that at the beginning of the video, check it 5 times, read it 5 times, and do it blow by blow. And at the end of it, you've saved yourself an absolute fortune. So if you are going to do it, good luck to you. Take it easy, ride safe, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.